Hello, YNABers. My name is Jesse Meekum, and this is podcast number 461 for YNAB, where we teach you 4 rules to help you stop living paycheck to paycheck, get out of debt, and save more money. My question for you today is, how do you keep from going back into debt? A lot of the times when we're talking with people, they go on a sprint, they get motivated, they find some just will, and they go crazy, and they pay off a ton of debt, only to then slowly, usually very slowly, fall back into debt. And then you look at the situation you're in again, and it's completely demoralizing. It just takes any win that was in your sales left over from the last year would be gone. So how do you not just get out of debt? I think we could all say we're pretty clear on the actual mechanics of it. They're drop dead simple. You just send as much money as you possibly can to your debt, order them in any order you want. The big point is you take a pile of money that you acquire or find or somehow amass, and you just throw that pile of money at your debt. But this is the key. The reason that people really get stuck in the situation where they're excited to pay off their debt and they are throwing the whole pile, if that were really going to work, then, well, let me say it this way. The only way that will work is if they are also acknowledging events that will take place in the near or distant future that previously would have very likely put them into debt. So most of the time, and you might read in the news, tragic stories where you have like massive amounts of medical debt or people that took on crazy amounts of student loan debt and perhaps didn't even know. That's a totally different topic. Most people get into debt slowly, and they get into debt very gradually with not large expenses, but just kind of like little hits here and there to the tune of hundreds of dollars at a time, not thousands very often, but it's those hundreds of dollars that add up over time, sometimes not very long of a time. So what we want to do is say, well, what caused the debt in the first place? How do we prevent that from happening? Once we're clearly preventing new debt, then we go into total attack mode. But you have to shore up your defenses first. You have to make sure there isn't a leak in your thinking, in your strategy, and then you can say, okay, we're going to go crazy. So you look ahead and you think of those larger, less frequent expenses that were nailing you before. Anything to do with car repairs, home repairs, appliances, big bills. Just go to your bank, scan down the list of transactions, and find the ones that jump out to you because they're large, like 3-digit, 4-digit, especially 4-digit. Skip over your rent or mortgage or whatever, and then find those big bills that hit you in the last year, maybe even the last 2 years. It's a quick scan with a finger, like print it out, scan, and then shred it. But get all of that kind of behind, or get all of what's behind you kind of in front of you and say, okay, these were the things that caused it this time or last time. What can I do to make sure that they don't happen to me again? And it's really rule 2. What happens is when we aren't following rule 2 and we're just kind of saying, hey, do I have enough money to buy this? Do I have enough money to buy this? Can I afford this? That's kind of like that's the start of my book, is that stressful question of, can I afford this? Well, when we're saying, can I afford this? And then we're looking at a bank balance and we're saying, yes, you can, based on the bank balance, you aren't taking into account that larger, less frequent expense. It's going to nail you in like 3 days or 3 weeks or 3 months, but it's going to get you. So what happens is you look at your bank balance and you're like, can I afford this? Yeah, I can afford it. And in the moment you can, but you aren't taking into consideration the entirety of your situation because we aren't talking about the future you. So what we do is we consider those future expenses, and then you let those come back to the present table where we're negotiating, and you say, is this going to work? Can I afford this in light of these expenses that will come in 3 months, 6 months, and 3 days? Can I still afford this? And if the answer is yes, go to town. But the answer may be no. And right there, you just prevented debt. That was it, because you didn't spend the money now that you need for the money later. And what would you have done when you needed the money later and you didn't have it? You would have swiped your credit card. So in order to really, rule 2 is just massive debt prevention. You're looking ahead. You're saying, those are my true expenses. You're embracing, hugging, loving those true expenses, minimizing them when you can, but acknowledging that they're real. You see that, and then you say, okay, that was very likely the cause of my debt. Student loan debt is kind of a separate issue, and we could go into that in a separate episode. But for most people, again, it's just those little bits. So you first need to prevent the debt before you go crazy about getting rid of it. I am so for getting rid of your debt, but I don't want to have you go back in because it's awful. So prevent it first, even if it means that your debt isn't disappearing as fast as it conceivably could. Even if it means that it has to sit there and stare at you a little longer. That doesn't matter, because what we're talking about is you saying, oh, but when I do send you away, you will never, ever come back. It's permanently gone. That's what we're going for. Until next time, follow YNAB's 4 rules and you will win financially. You've never budgeted like this. Welcome to 2021.